Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, broadcasting live on Channels Television. Here are the stories making our headlines this hour. The federal government resolves to deal with the refugee issues arising from terror attacks in the northeast. The president visits Lagos. Aide says it's a private affair. Former Nigerian President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo doubtful about the return of the abducted Chibok schoolgirls. And pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong regroup at main protest scene. A reminder here that all our top stories can be found on our website, channelstv.com, and on youtube.com/channelsweb. You can get any of our videos. But if you're on the move, then you can visit m.channelstv.com to view us live on your mobile device and download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS, and Windows phones from their respective stores. We also encourage you to interact with the Channels Eyewitness feature on our Android, iOS, and Windows 8 platforms. So if you have pictures or videos that you'd like to share with us, tap the application on your device, swipe to reveal the Eyewitness menu, and follow the instructions. In continuation of our Independence series, tonight we take a look at the legislative arm of government and how it has impacted on nation building. Our correspondent Larry Lasisi reports, however, that the lawmakers themselves are worried that their role is often misunderstood.
How has the National Assembly contributed to national development? This is perhaps a question on the mind of the ordinary man on the street as Nigeria enters its 54th year of existence as an independent nation. Since Nigeria became independent in 1960, the legislature has hardly featured as a stable national institution. It has often been the target of military coups because it is one of the features of governance that distinguishes democracy from military dictatorship. Some lawmakers say the Nigerian legislature has witnessed much development.
If it borders on our responsibility as lawmakers, I don't think we have done badly. Looking at what has happened, no matter even the military interventions. But I believe that, we have been able to chunk out laws that are generally in the great interest of these countries.
I believe, yes, we have the materials, the right materials in the legislature who is given the right environment could even do better.
The lawmakers, however, say the role of the legislature is still misunderstood by the electorate.
So until we begin to educate our electorate to know the functions and duties of a members of the parliament start from here and ends here, and then the functions of the duties and functions of the members of the executives start and ends there. Until we do that, we continue to have problems. The parliament today, they have problems. If you have this, they are overstretched.
One of the critical roles of the legislature is monitoring government's ministries, departments and agencies to ensure they implement the budget and carry out their responsibilities to the people. The lawmakers point out challenges that impede on effective monitoring.
The challenges for us as lawmakers to be able to achieve these is that of personal interest of the agencies or the directors or the ministers who are involved. And then ours is to expose, ours is to carry out our function, it's the executive to execute.
I have been in oversight in locations and places that I thought the right thing is to close down that institution. But when you start taking it up with the heads of those institutions, they start telling you their limitation. Fund. And of course, you can't go beyond what you've got.
The key function of the National Assembly is lawmaking. It's one function that also has some challenges.
The presidency has made our work so worthless, because even when you bring those bills that he has refused to assent to, it becomes for the fact that you have wasted money, resources, time, efforts, that we have spent in ensuring that those bills get to his table.
I think the problem we have with our lawmaking is is more of penalty lawmaking. We are so much involved in the laws of don't do this, don't do this. Look at the Indian model. A law that all bicycles must be made in India. A law that going forward, any cloth that is not made in Nigeria should not be worn. We members of the National Assembly can become an example.
When all is said and done, the legislature has a lot to do to assert itself and prove that it really represents the interest of the people.
Let's talk more now about the legislative arm of government. I'm being joined on the studio here on the News at 10 by Dr. Kayode Eswola. He is a lecturer of political science at the University of Lagos. You're welcome to the News at 10.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know how much of the report you were able to listen to, but you have been observing the National Assembly since its inception a couple of years ago. What's your assessment of their work so far?
Well, so far, not so good, clearly speaking. Partly because, again, the Nigerian people are yet to understand every aspect of democracy the way it should be understood. The National Assembly is a legislative arm of government. By tradition, it should be the engine room of democracy.
Mm-hmm.
We should fabricate policies, make laws for the betterment of the society. And the laws should go towards the yearnings and aspirations of the people.
Mm-hmm.
How well has this National Assembly been able to do this? Becomes a very big question. So, if you ask the people on the street, what they will tell you is that the impact is not yet felt.
But we're asking you tonight, not the people on the streets.
If I'm speaking, I must speak from the perspective of people.
Okay.
I started by saying not too good. The impact is not yet felt. But that's because democracy is still very new, very novel, and we cannot claim to have a mastery for the taste at the moment.
That's pretty interesting because, one of the duties of the National Assembly, of course, is also signing of the passing of the budget before it goes, of course, to the Senate. And since inception of this assembly, budget has been signed pretty late. And the nation, I believe, some of our developmental projects have been put on hold or delayed because of, the late passage of the budgets and so on. What do you make of that?
Well, that's simply because of the crisis between stakeholders and vested interest. When the presidency presents budget to the National Assembly for signing, because we don't have statesmen as politicians yet in this country, you have a situation in which everybody begins to look at the budget in terms of what is there for me. So there is vested interest, which is in crisis and conflict with the interest of the nation, as the case may be. And when you have a society like that, your budget will always come late. We're not likely to get out of that very soon.
Let's backtrack a bit to talk about the role of the National Assembly. Well, they've said quite a number of times that people do not understand. People are, misunderstanding their role and, sort of ascribing jobs, responsibilities of the executive on them. You think that is true, and what you think this is the fault of the National Assembly and not the people who are probably perceiving them that way?
Well, it may not be totally untrue, partly because of what I told you before, that democracy is still very, very new in Nigeria. We're just getting used to it. Again, partly because the civil society has not come up with its responsibility. Anywhere in the world, it is the duty of the civil society to educate people proactively on governance and policies and activities of government. It is the function of the civil society to educate people that this is the meaning of National Assembly, these are the function of the legislators. They come to your constituency, you take them up, ask them questions, set agenda for them. And then they go to the legislative houses and make this agenda in form of policies and practices. Do you understand? So when you have a nation where democracy is new and the civil society is either absent or very passive, not proactive, it is not strange that people will not understand the function of the people at the National Assembly. And to them, they're having a field day. Because, I mean, the way it works is that eternal vigilance is the price of freedom, and freedom means democracy. In Nigeria, when you put people in office, legislative offices, everybody goes to sleep. You think that they are there to protect your own interests without vigilantly watching them, minute by minute, hour by hour, activity by activity. This is the pulse of the polity for now. And once our people are not doing that, nobody will really understand.
I just wanted to quickly explain, you know, going forward, in a few months we'll be, we'll have the elections in Nigeria in February. That's just a few months away. Going forward, what does the National Assembly need to do to improve, you know, for people to have more confidence, I should say, for the electorates to have more confidence in Nigeria's electoral system? Well,
they must be much stronger than they've been on their oversight functions. I mean, their job is bipartite, it's dualistic. One, they come in to refabricate laws and policies in the society, and on the other hand, they watch closely over the executive so that they will not misuse and abuse power. I think in that aspect that they are needed now to gain more trust of the electorate if we must drive this democracy to a very good end.
Dr. Eswola, it's been a pleasure having you on the News at 10. Thank you for joining us. I've been speaking to Dr. Kayode Eswola, a lecturer of political science at the University of Lagos, who's been talking about the National Assembly in continuation of our assessment of Nigeria's Independence Day celebrations and, of course, the impact that the National Assembly has had on the nation. Let's turn our attention now to teachers. They're mostly responsible for the molding of a child's dreams, aspirations and character. They're also often regarded as a good channel for transmitting civilization. And as teachers observe the World Teachers' Day, attention is shifting now to the significance of the teaching profession in an increasingly complex, multicultural and technological society. Our next report attempts to capture what those in this noble profession regard as a value placed on them by the government.
Teachers world over are observing the World Teachers' Day. This is a day set aside by the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, to highlight and acknowledge the efforts and significance of teachers to nation building. This year's theme is Invest in the Future. Invest in teachers. It's 20 years since it was first inaugurated by UNESCO. In order for us to get a clear perspective of what an average teacher's sole pattern is, we visited Abiodun Kunu. She's a teacher at St. Saviour's School in Ikoyi, Lagos. She speaks on the profession and its challenges in Nigeria.
Sometimes it's not about what you earn, it's about what you like doing, what you love to do. If you love to teach, no matter how much someone is offering you out there, you will stay there because it's not about the money, it's about life that you're impacting. You need to train teachers, you need to train them, and then you need to pay them well. Sometimes last week, some men were honored by the president. I never heard the name of a teacher mentioned. Things like that. I think if the nation would recognize teachers and give them national honors, they'll put in their best.
The situation is not peculiar to Lagos alone.
Since we are the bedrock of the development of any society, the government on its part, they've not done well. They are supposed to provide accommodation for the teachers, but you discover that 90% or 80% of our salaries are spent on what? Accommodation, providing accommodation. But if these things are provided, like in other countries, like in South Africa, they provide the basic necessities of life that will make a teacher live a conducive life, then you see the level of productivity. You can't compare the salary of a teacher in Nigeria and that of South Africa or that of the developed nations of the world.
If a teacher is paid well, I am not sure she would want to sell puff-puff, because there wouldn't be time for, making that puff-puff. Instead of making the puff-puff, you're busy researching on what you're going to teach.
Working for somebody entails getting something in return. But what we are doing, what we are giving out, is we are not getting exactly what we should be getting from the government in return. So I would personally want them to improve on what they are giving to us as teachers.
In view of the current position in the country's education sector, this teacher says government must do more for the profession.
Not simply the issue of bringing in more hands or recruiting as many people to fill the expected the leftover space, but the issue means getting the right teachers by ensuring that the current situation which teachers are facing is particularly addressed.
The significance of teachers to nation building cannot be overemphasized. And no nation grows beyond the level of importance it accords that profession. As they celebrate the World Teachers' Day worldwide, we hope that this country would realize the importance of teachers and accord them the due attention they deserve. Chris Elems, Channels Television News.
When the News at 10 returns, Governor Babatunde Fashola insists there is no low-cost housing. He gives more insight on his government's housing scheme. That's in a moment. Please join us again.